Welcome to the Indie Pub, a laid-back interview show dedicated to the world of self and indie publishing. I'm your host, Jay Rushing, author of the self-published fantasy noir novel Radio, and a beverage buff with a passion for deep dives and good times. Every 2 weeks, a guest will step into the pub with a publishing-related topic and a favorite drink for us to explore and enjoy. Whether you want to sharpen your craft, snag a new cocktail recipe, or just have a laugh, there's always a seat and a full glass waiting for you at the Indie Pub. Welcome to the Indie Pub. Today's guest is owner and editor of Before We Go blog and assistant editor and site lead at Grimdark magazine, Beth Tabler. She's here with us to discuss Grimdark, what it is, what it isn't, and why she loves it. But before we dive in, tell us a bit about what we're drinking here in the pub today.
I am drinking a Pimms Cup #1, which we don't drink a lot in the United States, but it is my favorite thing in the world when it comes to alcohol, so I'm very happy.
I love Pimms. It's such an interesting. You're right. Not a non-US drink. You rarely
non-US drink.
Okay, so Grimdark.
Okay.
It's a tricky genre to pin down.
Yeah.
That's really the whole theme of this entire episode is going to be the trickiness. And so to start, can you give us just kind of a baseline understanding of what Grimdark is and where it came from?
Well, I can tell you where it came from. It was inspired by a Warhammer 40K quote. In the grim darkness of the far future, there's only war. And from there, people started writing grimdark novels kind of as a genre in like the late 90s. And it's just snowballed. You know, Mark Lawrence put out his book, Joe Abercrombie, Our Lord and Savior. You know, and it's snowballed and got more popular, and it's had a real influence on television and movies too, stylistically. So it's pretty much everywhere now.
What was it that drew you to Grimdark, kind of in the first place? Was it one book, one movie, a short story? What was your first dipping of the toes in Grimdark?
It was a natural progression. Like I've been a big reader my whole life. It's probably obvious. I could talk about books for hours. And in the beginning, there was a lot of Lord of the Rings, a lot of urban fantasy, which I'm still huge fans of. But as I've aged and matured, I've just sort of gravitated more towards the darker parts of fantasy. One of the best aspects of Grimdark is its choice. The protagonist has more agency in Grimdark, and it's more realistic in a lot of ways. Like the king sucks, the food is bad, it's terrible. And so in that regard, you can, I think, empathize a bit with this situation. It's morally gray. People are morally gray. There's no real good people or bad people. It's all shades of badness, perspective. Mm-hmm. And so it's like evil is a matter of perspective. Depends on who's talking about it. So that really intrigued me. And it's not violence porn. Although often it's painted as, it's just violence. It's for 13-year-old boys who play, multi-person shooter games. It's not at all. You can have a grimdark book without there being any violence in it.
Yeah.
It's the situation. It's dark realism. It's, how a character acts within a certain situation.
Sorry, this will be putting you on the spot a little bit, but do you have an example of a book that is low violence, high grim?
I can talk, there's a book I read recently, and then I have been talking about incessantly, so much so that author's probably sick of me talking about it, is Nafit Gloss. Now, Nafit Gloss is a science fiction novel, but as Grimdark has evolved, it's kind of spread. It's spread to other genres, and it is a grim, dark science fiction book. And in this book, there are violent points to it, but it's not all about the violence. There's I think actually very little violence. There's some creature violence in the beginning and stuff, but it's just the situation, and it's brilliant, and it's interesting, and very much grimdark. So yeah.
So okay, so along those lines, and along the lines of grimdark kind of spreading out into the world, I've seen grimdark described with very broad strokes and then also very narrow interpretations. And lots of genres have calling cards, right? You have, romance and mystery are two good examples of genres where readers have expectations and they go into a story knowing that they're going to get X, Y, and Z no matter how the tale is spun. So are there certain calling cards that grimdark has that it kind of run in a similar vein?
Yeah, I think so. The protagonist has a lot of agency to make choices. I know that you're writing a book. It's set what the choices are for the protagonist and everything, but it seems like a path is not always laid before the protagonist.
Mm-hmm.
We have high fantasy and stuff. It usually, this is the correct path that a good character will follow to defeat the king or whatever. It's not so laid out. So in that way, the protagonist has more agency. There is violence, but not necessarily, as I said, and it usually has a darker tone, a darker, more realistic tone. People are bastards because people are bastards.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's talk a little bit more about our cocktail because I need another sip. Let's talk a little bit about how it tastes. So one of the things that made me really happy with the fact that you chose a Pimms cup as our drink for today is it's about as ungrimdark as a drink could be.
I know, it's so funny.
So it's classically a British drink. And it reminds me of those, what do they call it? Is it spectator hats that they wear? Is that the name for it? I can't remember.
Oh, hell. No, it's on the tip of my tongue, too. Like the absolutely amazing.
Yes.
Oh, I'm going to look it up.
It's kind of like a refined parade float in a way, but just that, really elaborate, but it's the drink form of that.
Oh, I'm looking it up. What is it called? A fascinator.
Fascinator, that's right.
Let me have a more perfect name for this hat. It is fascinating. It's
absolutely. So describe this drink. I'm looking at mine here. It's got a lot going on.
So I actually started thinking about this. How would I describe a Pimms cup to somebody? I had no idea. So I'm stealing somebody else's vision. Jaeger, apple juice, and iced tea mixed together. That's what which I thought was okay, I can see that. And it's slightly bitter, slightly spicy.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, that's yeah. Because it tastes like itself. It is its own thing.
Absolutely.
So unless you drank it, it's difficult to explain the flavor. Mm-hmm. I prefer the fruit basket version.
Yes.
I prefer the fruit basket, which just means, adding some fruit to enhance some of the flavors, but not necessarily. It's gin based from what I understand. So there's definitely the gin flavor to it also. I don't know. I think it's funny. Like, I think I'm actually a really old British gentleman inside. Nice. Like the tweed jackets and the patches.
Tweed's kind of the greatest thing. I'm right there with you. I'm on Team Tweed for sure. Yeah, and so, like I was when I was looking this up because I haven't made one in a very long time. Some of the key fruits that are added is an orange slice, some strawberry slices, some cucumber slices, which is kind of an interesting mix. It's actually one thing that really surprised me is how much the strawberry comes through if you add a strawberry. Because that's typically just to eat a strawberry, I always find them to be a really disappointing fruit. Like with sugar or in something, they're good, but then you eat it and you're just like, oh, there's nothing here.
No, it doesn't really taste as strawberry-y as I want it to.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. But in this drink, it really pops through. I like to add so you're right. Gin based. I like to add a little bit more gin to mine, just to give it a little bit more pop. But
gin.
And then I've also seen variations where they will use lemonade as kind of the fill the rest of the glass up. I've seen a few that are iced tea. I've seen a lot that are ginger ale and ginger beer.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't tried the iced tea versions, but I have tried the ginger beer versions and the lemonade versions. And
There's always Sprite too. They mix it
yeah,
with Sprite.
yep. And all those are really good. It's a really, if you can find Pimms, it's a nice, refreshing, fun drink to have around.
It's very difficult to find. Like I have been to multiple liquor stores looking for Pimms, and they're like, I either have no idea what I'm talking about, or just don't carry it because it's just not a thing here.
Where'd you end up finding it?
There's a liquor store on. I know you're familiar with Portland. There's,
Yeah.
there's a liquor store on Stark and like 181st.
Okay.
Right next to the train stop, and it's a nice little liquor store, and they have it. They have a lot of interesting alcohols there. My husband prefers a type of rum that's overproofed, and which is another thing that's very difficult to find, but they have it too, so it really works out for both of us.
Well, for all of the Portland listeners out there, head over to the liquor store off of Stark, and you will find quite the collection. For those who don't know, I grew up just across the river in Washington State, half an hour out of Portland, a little town called Ridgefield. So Beth lives in my old stomping grounds, so
yeah.
Definitely familiar with a lot of those areas. Okay, so back to Grimdark for a little bit. And this is probably going to be a bit of a deep dive.
Okay.
Is it a genre in and of itself, or is Grimdark more of a filter that is put over a story, whether it's sci-fi or fantasy or historical fiction or, fill in the blank?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I think that it is evolving into its own genre. I think originally it was kind of riffing on existing genres because it's a fairly new. Grimdark ideas are old, but as a genre, it's fairly a new thing. So it is. I think it is evolving into its own thing. I think it's also a filter on existing genres, taking an idea and extrapolating on it. So like science fiction, I mentioned Norfolk Gloss.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very cool science fiction book that has this purveying darkness over it. That has the morally gray characters and stuff. So in that way, it's a filter on top of the existing science fiction book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And a lot of them are like that. Like I was thinking, trying to pick like a purely grim dark novel, and I had a really difficult time hearing you. Later I'm going to talk about some of my recommends. Have you read Never Die?
I haven't.
Never Die and Pawn's Gambit. Those are wuxia, which is like kung fu and that kind of aesthetic, but very much grimdark.
Okay.
I couldn't decide. I'm like, is that a grimdark or is that just the grimdark tendencies or what? So the answer is yes. It's developing. It's because it's developing. It's going to be its own thing eventually. Like very much its own thing.
So do you think that simply a book, so to preface this, to me, it's one of my all-time favorite books ever. But Cormac McCarthy's The Road is about as grim and as dark as a book can get. But there are no axe-wielding space orcs in sight. So the question is a book like that, is that an example of a quintessential grimdark, or is that adjacent, or does that not count?
Well, I think it definitely counts. I mean, I guess you can consider that a grimdark book because I haven't read it because I've always actually been a little afraid of it. Because just the movie adaptations of Cormac McCarthy's work kind of have scarred me. And I've always been a little bit afraid of that book. So I never tried, but from what I understand, very morally gray characters, very dark situation. So yeah, I think it would fit. It's also a dystopia.
Yeah.
so which is very much its own thing too. So when you talk about genres, it's these weird Venn diagrams, overlapping, and everything's starting to get more and more muddled. There's fantasy, there's science fantasy, there's uh, different types of horror that fit into science fiction, that fit into fantasy. So yeah. So yes.
If you try to read it, I will say I recommend picking. It's a short enough book. Just pick a really rainy, cold Sunday.
Uh-huh.
Wrap yourself up in a blanket and just strap in. The whole book feels like someone just keeps stacking more and more weight on your chest.
Uh-huh.
And then every once in a while someone comes up and kicks it. And then it just slowly, a little bit more weight, couple of kicks. And then you get to the end and you feel physically spent. And it's also a very sparsely written book. Like there's not a lot of description, yet every scene is completely fully visualized and realized. I could go forever about that book. So
it's very effective.
Very. The most effective book I've read personally.
Yeah. You think about Cormac McCarthy's characters, and I'm going to go with TV shows because, like I said, I've always been a bit afraid of his books, or movies. No Country for Old Men,
mm-hmm.
Villain, and No Country for Old Men. And it's a movie, and it's just some of the greatest writing, based on the book that I've ever seen. Yeah, this just looks absolutely brilliant.
For sure, yeah. It's and I think the other thing that's so great in that situation, and I think this translates to all Grimdark, and one of the reasons why I really like it as a genre or a filter, is just that realism. There isn't a lot of other details and other kind of asks that the author makes of you that you have to juggle alongside all of these moral struggles you're going through. You get to just focus on those in a world that functions as a world probably would function.
It seems like a very pure idea.
Yeah.
Like it's just you've got your, you don't have all the extra flouncy stuff around. It's just purely survival, right?
Yeah. Survival, that's a really good word to use. I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. It's such a survivalistic style of writing and style of story. With that being said, let's talk a little bit about the subject matter. So, by definition, it's grim, it's dark, it's depressing, it's soul sucking in a lot of ways. But are there any elements that you find that are kind of surprising or misconceptions that you think a lot of people have about Grimdark as a whole?
Yes, misconceptions. First misconception, I'm actually going through a giant slush pile of short stories right now. I'm curating an issue of Grimdark magazine in July.
Okay.
It's a crossover between horror. It's like, give me a story that's on the line of horror and fantasy. That's what I want.
Okay.
And I've gotten a lot of really great stories. I've also got a lot of stories where people don't really understand what Grimdark is. So Grimdark is not violence porn. It's not Saw, the movie Saw, stuffed into a book. It's just not.
Yeah.
What it is morally gray characters, for good or bad. Like they could be more on the side of angels or they could be psychopaths. They're morally gray. And they are reacting to situations where you don't really know how they should react. I mean, you have an idea based on your own morals and ethics how this character should act, but you're not really sure. And so it's dark, often there's violence, but I don't know, there's more agency to it. It's more character driven versus world building driven. And you always have to have a spark of hope.
Mm-hmm.
Or a spark of something.
Okay.
Maybe there's no hope, but there's something for a reader to latch on to, because otherwise, why bother? There's something like I'm thinking about some of the recent Grimdark books I've read. Chronicles of the Bitch Queen. Do you know K.S. Veloso's books?
I know of them. I haven't read them yet, but I know of them.
Brilliant books. And dark, but you're latching onto this amazing female protagonist. And that's the thing you hold on to. It's a cool character who has good moments. She's not a bitch all the time. She's not awful all the time. I think even with Mark Lawrence's books, the lead character of Mark Lawrence's books is a sociopath. But it's not bad all the time. There's something there for you to latch on to. And I think that's really important. So if you're going to give me a story that's nothing but gratuitous violence, baby killing, just for the sake of violence, it's not a good story. It's not a good understanding of the genre.
Yeah. One thing that I've heard a lot of people discuss when it comes to Grimdark is an undercurrent of humor.
Well, you have to have gallows humor.
Yeah.
I mean, I've read Grimdark stories that didn't have that, and I find them less effective because you have to be able to laugh just a little bit at this horrible situation you're in. A little bit of gallows humor. And just be able to, because nobody can take all of this pain or whatever's going on with your character and internalize it and not crack just a little bit and start to twitch and maybe quirk a smile. Like,
yeah,
you gotta have something. I think it's very important. Some of them are really funny.
Yeah, like what's an example that you could tell the readers about of a high comedy Grimdark that you've read?
Okay. I was going to mention this. Now, this was an indie, but now it's traditionally published. Have you ever read The Grey Bastards?
No, but definitely on my radar.
The Grey Bastards is definitely grimdark, but it's got some really funny characters. I wouldn't call it it's not a comedy, but it's a great balance on the characters. There's some of the characters just do really stupid things or say really stupid things or do really stupid actions, often drunk. It's just great. It's a good balance.
Okay, so speaking of balance.
Okay.
And you mentioned earlier that you'll oftentimes see people misinterpreting the genre a bit in their writing. What do you think makes a grimdark story end up kind of mediocre or disappointing?
No, they're missing that spark. I mean, that's the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah.
If you can't have a character. I'm just not going to want to read it. You can't have a character in the absolute throes of despair, the entire book, and then it ends.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a valid book. It's a valid story. I'm not going to want to read it, and I'm not going to latch onto the character at all. So, for me, it's not an effective story.
It's funny you bring that up because I find that's something that seems to happen in literary fiction a lot too.
Yeah, it does.
You have those stories where it's like, oh, my life sucks and all my friends suck and my family sucks and here's how they suck, and then they get to the end and it's like, oh, my life sucks a little less. It's like, well.
I mean, the story doesn't have to have resolution. It can still suck at the end, but it's got to have something to balance out. I don't even have to like a character. Believe me, a lot of grimdark books, I wouldn't want to hang with them.
Yeah.
But I've got to have something to attach to. And you find that in horror too.
Yeah.
Unless you're writing like splatter horror or actual horror porn, where it's like Saw.
Yeah.
But even in the movie Saw, Jigsaw had some comedy to it, and there was gallows humor and stuff too. So there was, even in Saw, there was still some of that latching on. They're trying to get the audience involved in the characters. That's the biggest thing I can think of. Just violence for the sake of violence just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so then flipping that around on its head, what are some of the details that you find really makes a great grimdark? Something that really makes a story pop out?
Well, for me personally, I like character-driven books, which makes me a perfect reader for grimdark because it tends to be more character-driven. So you give me good characters, you've got me. You give me great characters with a little swagger, little attitude, you've got me even more. And those are the things that pop out for me. I think of books that are grimdark. Gentlemen Bastards. Not necessarily grimdark, kind of on the line, but that the character-driven story with a little bit of swagger.
Mm-hmm.
That's it for me. You got me as a reader. It can be really, really, really dark, but if you have that, you got me.
Okay, so what do you think? So, kind of diving into that a little bit deeper, what do you think might be kind of some of the fresh and new aspects of grimdark that you see kind of emerging in the genre, and what are some of the more tired and played out aspects that you kind of like to see get put to bed?
Okay, well, it's such a new genre. There isn't really parts of it that are, to me, that are tired, played out. There are parts of the genre that get done a lot, like riffs on George R.R. Martin's stories that are set up like that. That's very common. That kind of extra low fantasy, gray characters stuff. I see that a lot. Still, the stories that I read are valid. They're good. The things that I like seeing grimdark and like embracing other genres, or the edges are melding and fraying a little bit. The grimdark science fictions. I've read a grimdark weird western.
Oh, nice. Oh, westerns would be perfect for grimdark.
Yeah, well, westerns are kind of like grimdark.
Yeah. I mean, if they're non John Wayne, resemble what the West actually was like.
Yeah. Old West was in a fun place.
Yeah. I mean, even just the lack of baths is enough.
Everybody, the food is shit.
Yeah.
Everybody stinks, and you're gonna get shot.
Yeah. Basically.
Duels. Or go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if your idea of a day out on the town is riding your horse 40 miles to eat a boiled potato, it's not the best life to live.
No, and it's been romanticized quite a bit. Have you ever read True Grit?
True Grit? I've not read it, but I've seen the movie.
The book is really, really good, and it has some of those aspects to it, some of the more dark aspects to it. I mean, it's a classic for a reason. Yeah. John Wayne was in the movie, the original movie, right?
Yeah. And who was it in the new one? It was
Big Lebowski.
Yeah, Jeff Bridges.
Who will always be Big Lebowski to me.
Yeah. That's basically that's his new legal name. Jeff Bridges is the character.
First name Big, last name Lebowski. Yeah. At least that movie I think was more faithful to the book than the original one was.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
That's the one I've seen the original, but it's been years and years and years. Yeah. So speaking of movies and other genres and other formats, I'm kind of calling you out here on this, so sorry, but I'm curious. What would you say are some pieces of media, whether it's books or comics or movies or what have you, that are really grimdark without ever having been called grimdark? Because a lot of people say, I've never read a grimdark, I've never seen a grimdark.
No, really, you have.
Yeah.
Especially now, because that seems to be the prevailing tone, that successful movies are like successful superhero movies are taking the grimdark tone.
Yeah.
Let's talk about TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
You've really seen a change in the last 15 years in the dark TV show. You've got Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
Breaking Bad, grimdark. If they tried to do Breaking Bad, I don't know, 25 years ago, there would have been laugh tracks and stuff on it, right? But now it's totally grimdark, just grimdark about drugs and morally gray characters. Was he good? Was he a bad guy? No, he was morally gray. He had his reasons.
Yeah.
The Walking Dead. Walking Dead is absolutely a grimdark. It's a horror novel. I'm talking specifically about the comic. I've never even seen the TV show. I find that happening a lot watching the TV shows. But I've read the comics, and it's a horror comic, but very much grimdark. Morally gray characters, morally gray situations, people doing things for the right reasons, but they are the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. But then you've got Batman, the new Batman movie, the new Justice League movie. Those are all very, very grimdark. It's just darker tone, grittier tone. Heath Ledger's The Joker was a grim character.
Yeah,
wasn't
definitely.
laughing. He was a grimdark character. So yeah, you're seeing it more and more, and it's kind of spreading, and people are going for it.
Yeah.
We want that kind of storytelling.
Okay, so let's talk about our drink again, since it's time for another sip. So, grimdark, we talk a lot about, kind of the mood of the worlds. And clearly, a Pimms cup is a very different mood. So tell us a little bit about why you picked this drink. Tell us a little bit about when is the right time to have a Pimms cup in your mind.
I think anytime's a good time to have Pimms cup. You really could. You're sad, have a Pimms cup. You're happy, have a Pimms cup. I picked it specifically because where I am, it's 11 o'clock in the morning, and it seemed like a nice way to start the day.
That is a great way to start the day. That is the one downside of me being across the pond, is everyone else ends up day drinking. Sorry about that for at least most people.
That's perfectly fine.
It's a good excuse for some day drinking.
So. Yeah, I mean, and I made it pretty. I've got orange slices in it.
All right.
Yeah, so I think it's a drink that you can have at any time. I first knew about it from going to have proper tea. I went to an English restaurant where they would do tea service, and I wouldn't have proper tea with, scones and clotted cream and cucumber sandwiches, and they had this drink called a Pimms cup, and I'm like, what the hell is a Pimms cup? And so of course I ordered it, and then started drinking it by the pitcher when I could.
Yeah, it is a very, very well suited for pitcherness drink.
It really is.
It'd be have a punch bowl of it at a party or. So what is so we talked a little bit about the variations before. What is your go-to recipe for a Pimms cup?
Okay, so I'll tell you how I made it this time. It really depends on what I've got. But I'll do maybe I get a cup. I'm gonna say cup. I don't know the terms, but I get a cup, and I fill it full of halfway with Pimms. I put some ice in. I'll put some fruit in. If I have strawberries and oranges, I'll usually do strawberries and oranges in it. Occasionally, a peeled cucumber, because I like that blend of flavors, which is the typical way of doing it. And then I will top it off with Sprite, if I've got it. I have Sprite today. I have Diet Apple Soda, so right now it's topped off with Diet Apple Soda, but it's still very good.
Oh, that would be very good.
Yeah, it lends itself to all different variations.
Yeah, I have a similar one. Mine is 1 part gin, because I like to make mine a little bit zippier. 2 parts Pimms, and then what worked out to be about 6 parts of sparkling lemonade on top. So I use the what is it? Oh, what's the brand that has the little tinfoil hat on top of the can? Orangina, the Lemonada is the lemon one.
Oh,
yeah,
really good. You can't, and that's another thing that you can't find very anywhere in the States. The Lemonada, Oranginata. I lived in Italy for a while when I was in college. I did a overseas education thing, and I used to drink those all the time.
Yeah,
and they're just
pretty nice.
So good. I don't like really sweet drinks. I don't actually think Pimms is all that sweet either.
Yeah,
it can be if you like load it up with lemonade or whatever, but it's not really sweet. It's flavorful.
Yeah, it's got a weight to it.
Yeah. My other drink of choice is gin and tonics. I love gin and tonics. I love whiskey. Fun. I think you'll appreciate this. So, on a non-pandemic year, I usually set a challenge for myself. I want to learn about something, so I'll set out to drink 100 different types of whiskey.
Nice.
Or 100 different types of fruit, or whatever. So one year I did whiskeys, and I made it to, I didn't get to 100, I actually got pregnant. But
that'll do it.
But I made it to 36 different types of whiskey. I really do like it. And they have quite the regional variations.
Yeah.
In them. So
what's your current top of the list for whiskey right now?
I'll tell you what I don't like.
Okay.
I don't like olives.
Okay.
I don't like anything that's like drinking something through a cigarette butt. Or
Gotcha. Okay.
Please, I don't want any hate mail.
No, that's completely fair. There are very few people who are like, I think olives are okay. Like either you just it's all you want. You just want, it's like if you could have the alcohol version of a smoked brisket, that's what you would have. And then there are people who don't appreciate that, and that's fine too.
It was just, when I had the flavor and stuff, it was very peaty, and it had a lot of smokiness to it, but left flavor in your mouth. It was like, I do not like this. Let's move on. I do not like this. The ones that I like the most, and you'll have to forgive me, when I was doing the flights, are Japanese whiskeys.
Yeah.
There's a whole movement of Japanese whiskeys they're so good.
Yeah. I'm a big Japanese whiskey fan too.
Okay. Yeah. And I can't think of any of the names off the top of my head, but yes. Any of the Japanese whiskeys, every single one that I had, and I had flights and flights, was good.
Yeah.
In different ways, sweeter, bolder, a little smokier, smoother, whatever, more bite, but they were all good. Yeah.
I 100% agree. One you might want to try if you like things a little bit on the lighter end. It's what's it called? My pronunciation may be wrong too. It's a Scotch. It's called Kleinleash.
Okay.
It's technically it's kind of a Speyside, kind of a Highland. I think it's technically considered a Highland, but it's just north of the Speyside region. But anyway, it's got a tiny bit of smoke, but just barely.
Just enough, right?
Just enough, and it's almost imperceptible, but it's really solid. I had my wife try it, and she set it down, and she's like, "That's it. That's the one." I had actually bought the bottle for my birthday, and she's like, "Go buy a different bottle. This is the one. This is my new favorite. This is what I'm gonna drink from now on." So, but definitely, I would give that one a try.
Okay. I will. I used to. So I'm from Las Vegas.
Okay.
I'm born and raised in Las Vegas, and I moved up here in 2009 looking for work because after the Great Recession, I used to be an architect.
Okay.
And all those jobs disappeared. Nobody was building anything. So I came up here looking for work and decided to stay for forever. But they had something called Lee's Liquor in Las Vegas. Have you been to Las Vegas at all? You know,
A couple times, but rarely off the strip.
Lee's Liquor is a warehouse dedicated to liquor.
Nice.
It's very Las Vegas, and they're all over.
Like if Total Wine was a Costco.
Yeah, bigger. Yeah,
okay,
much bigger than Total Wine.
Okay.
And you can try just about anything that you want to try. So that's how I ended up getting access to a lot of fun things to try. But they don't really have that up here. They have Total Wine, but it's in Washington.
Yeah.
And they have a tax.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just, I just can't bring myself to do it. It's just so expensive.
Yep.
Can't do it.
Yep. I don't blame you. If only California was closer, right?
Yeah. I would certainly. Yeah, Idaho doesn't have anything. I certainly can't go to Utah, but yeah, California, like bring back big boxes of alcohol. Makes me sound like a total lush. Well, not a lush.
Hey, we are in the pub today. That's the theme.
I have appreciation.
Hey, absolutely, I am in 100% agreement with you. Okay, so as a champion for the Grimdark world, what's something that you really, really wish, like if you not necessarily make a pitch for Grimdark to those who aren't familiar, but what's something you really wish people understood more or were more familiar with when it comes to Grimdark?
It's not all violence. It's not a genre for. I read this quote, and you'll have to forgive me, but they were talking about how it's nihilistic and it's a genre created specifically to tap into the 12-year-old boy market.
I saw that quote, yeah.
And it's just so. Well, it's insulting.
Yeah.
It's insulting to the genre. It's insulting to anybody who reads it. But it's so not true. It's just not true. If I had to pitch Grimdark, I would say that if you want layered characters, you want nuance, you come to a Grimdark story. You will have your layered characters and you will have your nuance. Sometimes there's no happily ever after, but it will be a journey when you read these books. And that's not what people are looking for. They're looking for Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
You know, and that's how I love Lord of the Rings. I have Lord of the Rings tattoo. I love Lord of the Rings, but it's a very specific thing that you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
You know, good triumphs over bad, and good, you're really good, really great. Really have that in Grimdark. It's all kind of right in the middle. Some peaks and valleys, but
yeah,
I like that. So that's what you're going to get when you read the genre.
All right, Beth, it is last call here at the Indie Pub. Can you give us an indie published book or 2 or 3 or 4 that you want more people to check out?
Oh, yes, I sure can. You talking about indie. I love indie books.
I appreciate that.
I'm a huge fan of what you indie authors go through. I picked 3. One of them is a little iffy because now it's being traditionally published.
That's okay. In our last episode, we had some of that. That's totally fine.
But it started out as an indie. Is obviously the Grey Bastard series. Just brilliant. I sent a copy of the Grey Bastards to my 74-year-old mom.
Nice.
My 74-year-old Mormon mother.
Oh wow. Okay.
She loved it.
Perfect.
She loved it, and she actually started talking about a lot of things we've been talking about. You know, the morally gray characters, the interesting voices that the characters can make, like you don't know exactly what they're going to do. So, big fan of the Grey Bastards. Chasing Graves by Bengali.
Okay.
I wrote a review of Chasing Graves, and I called it the quintessential grimdark fantasy, and I think it is. Have you ever read Chasing Graves?
I haven't.
I haven't had time to read the sequels, which sucks.
So it sounds like would you consider that a really good entry point then for people who aren't sure about Grimdark, whether they'd like it?
I would consider Grey Bastards. That's actually I would consider Grey Bastards and Chasing Graves Graves. Great entry points. It's not Mark Lawrence Dark.
Okay.
You know, Joe Abercrombie. But they are brilliant. The lead protagonist is brilliant in both of those books. I think a great place to start. And Ben is extremely prolific too. He's got 5 series now that he's got going on, 4 series, all excellent. He's even got I think he's got a Western. You know, we talked about West. I think he's got like a Western type one. I have to ask him, or have to check on his books. But yeah, it's really good. And the last one is Blackstone Heart.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, is that the SPFBO one with the purple cover?
Yes.
Yes, that cover's so good. I haven't read it, but I saw that cover and I was just like, oh my god, it's so good.
Black cover version of that.
There's what?
There's a black cover version of that.
Oh, really? Oh.
Purple covers. Just the cover would sell me just as you. But it has on Amazon in the States, I'm not sure about internationally, but you can buy that book with a pure black cover.
Oh, wow.
So it's pure black and it's got like shiny highlights on it. So you can turn it and see the picture, but it's so cool. So yes, yeah, Blackstone Heart. He has the second book is coming out in that series, also has a gorgeous cover. So those are the 3 indies. There's many more. Indie's wonderful, full place for Grimdark. And then I have 3 traditionally published ones.
Okay.
I picked. Well, I guess Never Die and Pawn's Gambit are not traditional. Those are also indies, but so Never Die and Pawn's Gambit. I just finished and reviewed a Desolation Called Peace. There's Desolation Called Peace is the second book. Memory Called Empire is the first book. It's by Arkady Martine.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely recommend taking those on. Those are very difficult to classify. Technically, they're science fiction, but they are science fiction with historical things added into them. Okay. She's a historian.
Okay.
Do you like a historian and a linguist?
Oh, that's a good combo for writing.
Yeah, like it's the books are rich and vibrant and very, very well detailed, and they have some Grimdark-esque kind of stuff laying on top of it, like and not the gloss and the World of Ornera, which is other ones that I've talked about. Noffic Gloss is written. It is a science fiction novel. Essa Hansen. I actually got the privilege of interviewing a really, really cool lady. Works for Lucasfilm as a sound editor, I think. And so she does a lot of stuff with sound. And she's, from what I understand, neurodivergent.
Okay.
And the way she processes sound and sight and anything like that, she writes it very richly in the book, and it's just absolutely wonderful. Yeah. And then the World of Ornera, the Bitch Queen, which I just love. I just got the arc for the last book of the series, and I am titillated.
Nice.
I'm very excited. What about you? What do you like when you start thinking about grimdark books and stuff or anything? What sticks out for you?
Oh,
sorry to put you on the spot.
No, that's fine. I think for me it's I tend to like grimdark as a filter a little bit more than maybe the more straight up genre versions of grimdark. Mm-hmm. I think that's mostly because I tend to write in that realm as well. But I'm trying to think back to some of the books and some of the things from the past that people might not have thought about as grimdark. But one that always pops up for me is Fight Club.
Oh, I was going to mention Fight Club. No, for reals. I was
Yeah.
going to mention Fight Club, but it's not traditional science fiction or fantasy.
Yeah.
It sort of is because all of well, I don't want to give anything away.
No, I get you. Well, and another that I would. This is probably a stretch, but it's my show, so I'm gonna make it. Um, but in a way, you could almost call Fear and Loathing Grimdark
Oh,
in like a bright neon version of it. But
oh
like
my
really, like
God.
that's as hilarious and amazing as that book is. It's bleak.
Yeah. And it has one of the greatest. It has one of the greatest quotes. I'm going to butcher the quote, but by the something like by the time I got to Barstow, the drinks had started to take hold.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole tone.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Have you read Transmetropolitan? The series
Transmetropolitan. I haven't.
Oh, okay. So maybe tangential here. Another Grimdark-esque type thing. Transmetropolitan is a graphic novel series based on. It's not technically, if you do the research on it, it's not based on Hunter S. Thompson, but it is based on a character very much like him. And he's a reporter in a science fiction future world, and it has that kind of feeling. A lot of
It's.
drug use. It's
I think I've seen some of the art. Is the main character have? I want to say he's kind of scrawny, glasses, kind of a weird Cupid doll
bald.
hair or
Yeah,
bald. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, he's bald, and he's got one green on the glasses, one green lens, one red.
yeah. Kind of has a little bit of a Rorschach without the mask vibe to him.
It's so good.
Okay, yeah, I've seen that. I haven't read it, but I've seen it.
Yeah,
Like,
it's Hunter. It's Hunter S. Thompson. Like that kind of attitude, all over the place, kind of reporter. He went and lived with the bikers, the Hell's
oh yeah,
Angels, so he could get a scoop. Well, that's this kind of character would
gotcha.
do, and not hesitate whatsoever. It's really fantastic.
All right, Beth. Well, tell our listeners what you have going on, where they can find you, all of those good details.
All right, so what have I got going on? Well, like I said, I'm curating issue number 27 for Grimdark magazine, which is going to be the horror crossover. Got some real great interviews lined up for that, so you shouldn't miss it. It's going to be a great issue. Of course, I've got Before We Go blog. Next month, we're focusing on women in science fiction fantasy. So we're going to be doing a review or an article every single day that month
Oh wow.
on how, let me tell you about a book you might not know of, written by a woman or woman, transgender, whatever. Let me tell you about this book. And you guys go out and read it. Let's support women in science fiction and fantasy.
Oh, that'll be great. And which month is that?
It's next month.
Next month. Okay.
Yeah. So it's this month is let me tell you about your new favorite author.
Nice.
And so I picked 30 authors, one for every day, and I just kablowed. Like I put 4 or 5 articles out every day about this author. I tried to pick short story, if they wrote fantasy, science fiction. If I have done an interview with them, I'll put that up. Some of it is repeats, but basically what I'm trying to do is introduce people to something they haven't, read before.
Oh, that's great.
So let me introduce you to your new favorite author. And it was half indie, half trad. And then I've got a few more things. In May, I am doing Around the World in Books. And every day that month, I'm going to feature a book written by an author from a different country.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So a lot of fantasy and science fiction tends to be popular out of the US, UK, and Australia, which is terrible because there's a whole world of amazing books and amazing authors that need to be in the spotlight. So I want to put
Absolutely.
them on my little podium. I want to put them in the spotlight.
Nice.
On Grimdark Magazine, we've got some really exciting interviews lined up, for next month. We've got some cover reveals. I know the Kickstarter is about to kick off for our new Grimdark anthology, which has got, and Mom, I can't tell you exactly who's in it, but some really, really cool people are going to be participating in it. So, yeah, I've got a little bit of everything going on. TBRCon 2022. So doing that.
Nice. Do they have a date yet?
I don't remember the date. It's in January. In January of next year. Yeah, we've just started. I'm trying to get. I keep putting up on Twitter if he can get 1,000 people following him on YouTube, we'll be able to get access to a whole bunch more YouTube features.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And we'll be able to bring you more stuff.
Yeah.
For it. So I think he's sitting at 760.
Oh, wow. So he's close.
He's very close. And we're just trying to, just come by and say you'll follow him, and then we'll be able to start putting it together.
Well, for those listening, make sure you head on over and check it out. I participated in TBRCon this year, and it was a blast. They put in a ton of work, and it's a really great event. So definitely worth a follow from you.
Mm-hmm. And that's it so far. We'll see. Self-published Fantasy Month is in September.
Yeah.
That last year was one of the organizers for that, so I'll do it this year again. And then we'll just talk about self-published fantasy for a month.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm busy.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This was like I said, I've been training for this my whole adult life. So I'm good.
Thanks everyone for tuning in to the Indie Pub. If you like what you hear, consider giving us a like and subscribe so you won't miss any of our indie investigations or boozy banter. I've been your host, Jay Rushing, and we'll see you back in the pub next time.